My name is Peyton Calloway, and I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table on a humid June afternoon when my entire future fell apart. It was 3 months before I was supposed to start college. My acceptance letter to State University was still on the fridge, held up by a magnet shaped like a graduation cap. I'd looked at it every single morning for weeks, barely able to believe it was real. After 4 years of perfect grades, endless studying, volunteer work, and scholarship applications, I'd actually done it. My mom, Diane, sat across from me with her hands folded tightly on the table. My dad, Tom, was next to her, staring at his coffee mug like it held all the answers. They both looked uncomfortable, nervous even. The air in the room felt heavy. My stomach started to twist before anyone said a word. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Tom cleared his throat twice before he finally spoke. "Peyton, we need to talk about your college fund." My heart dropped straight through the floor. The college fund. The one my grandparents had set up for me the day I was born. The one they'd been contributing to faithfully for 19 years. The one that was supposed to cover tuition, housing, books, meal plans, everything I needed to start my life. "What about it?" I asked slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. He wouldn't look at me. He kept staring at that coffee mug. "It's gone." I stared at him. The words didn't make sense. "What do you mean, gone?" "We used it," my mother said quickly, her voice tight and defensive. "For Brooke's wedding. But you'll be fine, sweetheart. You can take out student loans like everyone else does. It's completely normal." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process what I was hearing. $47,000. 19 years of careful saving. Gone. Spent on my sister's wedding. "Is this a joke?" I finally whispered.
My father looked at me then.
His face was tight with guilt, but his voice was firm. "Family comes first, Peyton. Brooke needed this. You're smart. You'll figure it out." The room started to spin. 19 years of my grandparents' love and sacrifice.
Gone.
For a party. I was 7 years old the first time I truly realized I wasn't the priority in my family. I'd won first place at the elementary school science fair. I'd spent 3 weeks building a model of the solar system that actually lit up when you pressed a button. Each planet glowed a different color. I was so incredibly proud of it. When they called my name for the blue ribbon, I felt like I was floating. I ran to the audience section holding my certificate and ribbon, searching frantically for my parents in the crowd. I wanted to see their faces. I wanted them to be proud. They were there, but they weren't watching me. They weren't even looking in my direction. They were on the other side of the gymnasium, watching Brooke's middle school dance recital. They were cheering and clapping and taking pictures with huge smiles on their faces. Nobody asked me about my ribbon that day. Not once. When I was 14, Brooke turned 16. I woke up that morning and looked out the window to see a car in our driveway with an enormous red bow on top. My parents had bought her a car, an actual car for her birthday. She screamed and cried happy tears and hugged them both for what felt like hours. On my 16th birthday 2 years later, I got a Hallmark card with $20 inside. Brooke's report cards were always mediocre at best. Mostly CS, some DS, occasionally AB if she really tried. My parents would sigh and say things like, "She's creative, not academic. That's just who she is. That's okay." I made honor roll every single semester from 6th grade through senior year. Straight A's. Perfect attendance. Academic achievement awards. My parents would glance at my report cards and say, "Good job, honey. We're proud of you," and then immediately change the subject. I learned very early that I wasn't the child they celebrated. I was the responsible one, the capable one, the one who didn't need constant attention and validation. So I stopped asking for it. I stopped expecting it. I made myself small. I was 18 years old, 3 months into my senior year of high school, when Brooke burst through the front door with a ring on her finger. She was engaged to Kyle, a guy she'd been dating for exactly 11 months. The house absolutely erupted. My mother screamed so loud, I thought something terrible had happened. My father grabbed a bottle of champagne from the back of the fridge. Brooke was crying those happy, overwhelming tears. showing off the ring to everyone, turning her hand this way and that to catch the light. Phone calls went out immediately. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. Everyone had to know right that second. My mother started planning out loud before the champagne was even poured. We're going to make this absolutely perfect. The wedding of the year. My baby girl is getting married. Tom laughed and made a joke about taking out a second mortgage. Everyone in the room laughed with him like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. I hugged my sister tight and told her congratulations. I smiled. I said all the right things. But deep in my chest, something twisted uncomfortably. Something I couldn't quite name yet. A feeling of dread I didn't understand. Later that night, I was upstairs in my room trying to study when I heard my parents talking in the kitchen below. Their voices carried up through the old heating vents. "We'll make it work somehow," my mother was saying. "She only gets married once. This has to be special." "It's going to be expensive, Diane," my father replied, sounding worried. "I don't care. We'll figure it out."
She deserves this.
She deserves everything. I sat there on my bed and looked over at my college acceptance letter pinned to my bulletin board. I had no idea yet what was coming, but somewhere deep down in my gut, I think I already knew. Nothing good was heading my way. Brooke's wedding planning took over our entire house and every conversation. There were massive planning binders on every available surface. Pinterest boards pulled up on every computer and tablet screen. Vendor meetings scheduled every single weekend. My mother lived and breathed nothing but wedding details from morning until night. The budget started at $15,000. That seemed like an enormous amount of money to me. But then within weeks it became $25,000, then $40,000. Then it kept climbing higher. Every single time the number went up, my mother had a justification ready. The venue absolutely had to be oceanfront with a sunset view. The dress had to be designer, custom fitted. The flowers had to be specially imported. The photographer had to be award-winning with published work. The cake had to be from that one specific bakery an hour away. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be the best. I was finishing my senior year of high school. I was applying for every scholarship I could find. I was preparing for final exams. I was getting ready for the biggest transition of my life. But every single family conversation revolved around Brooke. Every dinner was dominated by discussions of seating charts and cake flavors and bridesmaid dress colors and song selections. I tried once to talk to my dad about my financial aid package. I needed help understanding some of the complicated forms. There were sections I didn't know how to fill out properly. "We'll figure it out later, honey," he said without even looking up from a catering menu he was reviewing with my mother. Then he immediately went back to discussing appetizer options. I went upstairs to my room and filled out the forms myself, guessing on the parts one didn't understand. Nobody noticed. Nobody asked if I needed help. I was invisible. I was walking past my parents' bedroom one afternoon when I heard my mother's voice coming through the partially open door. She was on the phone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but then I heard my grandmother's name and I froze. "I'm just asking if there's a way we can access the fund earlier than planned," my mother was saying, her voice carefully controlled. The fund. I knew immediately what fund she was talking about. My college fund. The education fund my grandparents had established. My grandmother's voice came through the phone speaker, sharp and clear even from where I stood. I couldn't make out every word, but I could hear her tone. She was angry. "That money is for Peyton's education, Diane. Not for a party. That's not what it's for." My mother's voice turned cold and clipped. "It's just sitting there doing nothing right now. Peyton can take out student loans like millions of other kids do. Brooke needs real help right now. This is important. Peyton's future is important." My grandmother shot back. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I stood frozen in the hallway, barely breathing, pressing myself against the wall. The call ended badly. I heard my mother hang up with a frustrated huff. I didn't confront her. Not then. I didn't even know if she'd actually be able to get access to the money. My grandparents controlled the fund, not my parents. Maybe they'd say no. Maybe the money was protected. But the seed of dread that had been planted the night of Brooke's engagement suddenly grew roots. Something bad was definitely coming. I could feel it approaching like a storm. 2 weeks later, my parents called me into the kitchen and told me to sit down. This was the conversation that destroyed everything. Tom cleared his throat 3 times before he could get the words out. "Peyton, we need to talk to you about your college fund."
And that's when they told me.
The money was gone. All $47,000 of it. Every single penny. They'd somehow convinced my grandparents to release the funds early. They'd promised it was for my education. Then they turned around and spent every cent on Brooke's wedding. "How could you do this without even asking me?" I said, my voice shaking so badly I could barely get the words out. "How could you spend my money without telling me?" "It's technically not your money," Tom said, not meeting my eyes. "We're your parents. Legally, we make the financial decisions. That's how it works." "Brooke's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event," Diane added firmly, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "College will always be there.
You can go anytime.
There's no rush." I started crying. I couldn't hold it back. The tears just came and came. I already accepted the scholarship offer at State. I paid the initial deposit with my summer job savings. I was counting on that fund for housing costs, for books,
For food.
for everything else. My mother's face hardened like stone. "Then you'll get a part-time job like other students do. You're resourceful and responsible. You'll figure something out. You always do." I looked desperately at my father, silently begging him to step in, to say this was wrong,
To fix it somehow. He wouldn't even look at me.
That's when the truth hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a discussion. This had never been a discussion. The decision had already been made weeks ago. The money was already gone, already spent. And they genuinely didn't care how I felt about it. I didn't matter enough to even ask. I found Brooke at her favorite bridal boutique 2 days later. She was in the middle of her dress fitting, surrounded by all her bridesmaids, laughing and holding up different veil options. I walked straight up to her. "I need to talk to you."
Now.
She barely glanced in my direction. "I'm kind of in the middle of something important, Peyton. Did you know where the money for your wedding came from?" I asked, my voice tight. She looked at me with mild annoyance, then back at her reflection in the mirror. "Mom mentioned something about it last week."
Why?
"What's the big deal?" "That was my college fund, Brooke. The money Grandma and Grandpa saved for 19 years. For my education." Brooke actually rolled her eyes at me. "Oh my God, Peyton, you're being so incredibly dramatic right now. It's just money. You'll figure something out. You always do. I'm getting married. This is actually important. This actually matters." One of her bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably and looked away. The others just stared at me like I was ruining their fun. I felt like I'd been slapped. "You seriously don't feel bad about this at all?" "Peyton, I really don't have time for your drama right now," Brooke said, turning completely away from me to examine lace details. "Can we please talk about this later? You're killing the mood." I stood there for another moment, completely stunned into silence. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel sorry. She genuinely didn't care at all. I left the boutique without saying another word. That was the exact moment I realized the full truth. My family didn't just prioritize Brooke over me. They genuinely saw me as less valuable than her, as expendable, as someone whose dreams didn't matter. I called the State University Financial Aid Office first thing the next morning. My hands were shaking as I dialed. I explained my situation to the woman who answered. I'd paid my initial acceptance deposit on time, but I'd missed the secondary housing deposit deadline by 3 days. I'd missed it because I didn't have the money. I'd been waiting for access to my college fund, but now that fund was gone. The woman on the other end of the line was kind. She sounded genuinely sympathetic, but she was also firm and clear. "I'm very sorry to hear about your situation. Unfortunately, because you missed that secondary deadline, your partial merit scholarship has been reassigned to another student from the waiting list." My chest got so tight I could barely breathe. "Is there anything at all I can do? Any way to fix this?" "You're welcome to reapply for admission and scholarships for next fall," she said gently. Next fall. An entire year away. 12 whole months. I hung up the phone and sat down on my bedroom floor and sobbed harder than I ever had in my entire life. I'd worked so unbelievably hard for this. 4 years of perfect grades and extra credit and advanced placement courses. Hundreds of hours of volunteer work. Carefully crafted essays. Glowing recommendation letters from teachers. Early morning study sessions and late nights and weekends in the library. All of it for absolutely nothing. That night at family dinner, I told my parents what had happened. That I'd lost my scholarship. That I'd have to wait a whole year and reapply and start over. My father sighed heavily, like I'd inconvenienced him. My mother said, "Well, there's always community college as a backup option. Plenty of successful people start there." Brooke didn't say a single word. She was staring at her phone, scrolling through potential wedding hashtags. I looked around the table at all of them, and I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my entire life. I enrolled in community college that fall with a heart full of broken dreams. I got a job working opening shift at a coffee shop near campus. Then I got a second job working evenings and weekends at a retail clothing store. I worked early mornings and late afternoons, then rushed to classes in between, and on weekends whenever they were offered. I was bone-deep exhausted all the time. I lived at home because I couldn't even begin to afford rent anywhere else. I commuted 40 minutes each way to campus. I survived on 4 hours of sleep most nights, running on coffee and sheer stubborn determination. I watched my high school friends' social media posts with an ache in my chest. Pictures of dorm rooms decorated with string lights and posters. Football games in student sections. Parties and campus events and late-night study groups. All the normal college experiences I was supposed to be having. I was genuinely happy for them, but seeing it all hurt more than I could ever explain. My parents didn't offer to help with anything. Not money for books. Not gas money for my commute. Not words of encouragement. They didn't apologize. They didn't even seem to notice or care how hard I was struggling every single day. Brooke's wedding was only 3 months away now. It was the only thing anyone in my family talked about. Every single dinner conversation. Every weekend. Every phone call. I started to disappear into myself more and more. I stopped expecting my parents to acknowledge anything I did. I stopped hoping they'd notice me at all. I just put my head down and survived one day at a time. Brooke's wedding day finally arrived on a perfect Saturday in September. I have to admit, it was absolutely beautiful. Everything my mother had promised. Gorgeous oceanfront venue with a ceremony right at sunset. 300 guests in formal attire. A live 12-piece band. Flowers absolutely everywhere you looked. The kind of wedding you see in luxury magazines. I was a bridesmaid, which meant I had to wear a dress I'd paid for myself. $240 I absolutely didn't have. I'd put it on a credit card and had no idea how I'd pay it off. I stood up at the altar and watched my parents cry genuine tears of joy during the ceremony. I watched Kyle's entire family give touching toasts about love and future and happiness during the reception. Everyone kept saying over and over how absolutely perfect everything was. How it was the most beautiful wedding they'd ever seen. I sat at my assigned table during dinner and did math in my head. This single day, this one party that would be over in 6 hours, had cost more money than 4 full years of my state university tuition would have. A distant aunt I barely knew came up to me during cocktail hour with a warm smile. "So, Peyton, sweetie, where are you going to college? Your parents must be so proud." Before I could open my mouth to answer, my mother appeared at my elbow, out of nowhere. "Oh, Peyton's taking a gap year," Diane said smoothly, smiling at the aunt. "Doing some self-discovery, figuring out what she really wants. It's very mature of her." The aunt nodded with an approving smile. "Oh, how wonderful. Good for you, dear. That's so wise." I excused myself as quickly as I could. I walked to the bathroom, locked myself in the furthest stall, and cried as silently as possible into a wad of toilet paper. The next 6 years of my life were an absolute blur of work and school and bone-deep exhaustion. I managed to transfer to State University part-time after 2 years of community college. But I had to work full-time to pay for it. I took out student loans for whatever I couldn't cover with my paychecks. I took classes at night and on weekends. I studied during my lunch breaks and on the bus. I finally graduated at 25 years old with a bachelor's degree in finance. I also graduated with $68,000 in student loan debt hanging over my head. My parents didn't come to my community college graduation ceremony. They said they were too busy helping Brooke set up for her baby shower that same weekend. They didn't come to my university graduation ceremony either. My mother said it was just too far to drive for a ceremony that was on a weekday afternoon. She said she'd have to take time off work. Meanwhile, Brooke's life was an endless parade of celebrated events. Gender reveal parties with elaborate decorations. First birthday parties with professional photographers. House tours when she and Kyle bought their first home. Kitchen renovation updates. Every single milestone was documented, photographed, posted on social media, and celebrated by my parents. I was invited to absolutely everything. I was expected to show up with an appropriate gift, smile for photos, and be genuinely happy. And I did show up. Every single time. Because I still didn't know how to stop trying. I didn't know how to let go of that small hope that maybe someday they'd finally see me. That maybe eventually I'd be worth celebrating too. But that day never came. I was 25 years old when I got a job offer from a financial consulting firm in a city 2,000 miles away. It was a genuinely good position. Great salary. Real advancement opportunities. Benefits. Everything I'd worked so hard for. It was also my ticket out. My chance to escape. I drove to my parents' house to tell them the news in person. I thought maybe they'd be proud. Maybe they'd be sad I was leaving. Maybe they'd finally show something. Tom was reading the newspaper in his recliner. He barely looked up. That's nice, sweetheart. Diane was on the phone with Brooke, deep in discussion about her kitchen renovation. She covered the receiver with one hand. Good for you, honey. Proud of you. Then she went directly back to her phone call like I wasn't even there. I stood there in their living room for a long moment, waiting for more. Waiting for questions about the job. For concern about me moving so far away. For any indication that they'd miss me even a little bit. Nothing came. I realized with perfect clarity in that moment that they genuinely didn't care whether I stayed or left. It made no difference to them whatsoever. I'd been a background character in my own family for my entire life. The move stopped being just about a job. It became my turning point, my escape route. I packed everything I owned into my small car. I said a brief, polite goodbye, and I left. I didn't cry during the drive. I felt absolutely nothing. Just a vast emptiness. And somehow that numbness was worse than sadness would have been. I threw every ounce of energy I had into building my new life. I worked harder than everyone around me. I stayed late. I volunteered for difficult projects. I was hungry to prove myself, to build something that was entirely mine.
I was good at my job.
Really, genuinely good. The kind of good that gets noticed. Within 3 years, I was promoted to senior consultant. Within 5 years, I was managing my own portfolio of clients. Within 7, I was being considered for director positions. I made good money for the first time in my life. Real money. I paid off my student loans aggressively, throwing every extra dollar at them. Watching that balance go down felt like freedom. I got my own apartment. Small, but entirely mine. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. I made it a home. I made real friends. People who actually showed up when I needed them. Who remembered my birthday. Who called just to check in. I started seeing a therapist. I started unpacking everything. I learned what healthy relationships actually looked like. I learned what it felt like to be genuinely valued. My family rarely called. Maybe once every few months. When they did, the conversations were surface level and brief. How's work? Fine. That's good. How's everyone there? Good. Brooke would occasionally send group text messages asking for advice on preschools or vacation destinations. I'd respond politely and briefly. I stopped going home for holidays. I sent appropriate gifts. I kept my distance. And very slowly, over time, I started to heal. More years passed. I was 34 now. I hadn't been home in over 3 years. Hadn't seen my parents or Brooke face to face in all that time. I was a director at my firm now, respected by colleagues, trusted by clients, financially stable for the first time ever. I'd built what people call a chosen family. Close friends who genuinely showed up for birthdays and bad days and random Tuesday nights when I needed company. A mentor at work who believed in my potential and advocated for me. A life that didn't revolve around constantly trying to earn love from people who would never give it. Contact with my parents had dwindled to almost nothing. A brief text message on my birthday. A generic Christmas card with their names signed at the bottom and nothing personal. Brooke would reach out maybe once every few months asking for financial advice about investments or mortgage refinancing. I'd respond with brief, professional answers. There was no hostility, no anger, just distance. Comfortable, healthy distance. I'd made genuine peace with the fact that I would never receive an apology. I'd stopped waiting for one. I'd stopped needing one. Then one random Tuesday evening in October, my phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a long moment.
I almost sent it to voicemail.
But something made me answer. Hello. Peyton. My mother's voice sounded strained. Tired. Older than I remembered. I need you to come home. It's about your father. My chest immediately tightened. What happened? He had a stroke. A major one. He's in the hospital right now. Her voice cracked slightly. It happened this morning. I sat down slowly on my couch. Is he stable?
Yes. For now.
But barely. She took a shaky breath. The doctors say he's going to need months of rehabilitation. Possibly long-term care in a facility. I'm sorry, I said carefully.
And I meant it.
Despite everything, I didn't want my father to suffer. Peyton, we need you. Her voice broke completely.
Please.
I closed my eyes. I hadn't heard those 3 words from my mother in 15 years. I'll see what I can do, I said slowly. I'll have to check my work schedule and flight options. How soon can you get here? I don't know yet. I'll figure it out and let you know. Peyton, please.
I'll call you back, I said.
I need to process this and make arrangements. I hung up before she could say anything else. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the wall. I should have felt something.
Worry, fear, sadness.
The desperate need to rush to the airport. But I felt absolutely nothing. Just that same emptiness from years ago. I flew home that weekend on a Friday evening flight. I went straight to the hospital Saturday morning. I found my father in a room on the 4th floor, looking smaller and weaker than I'd ever seen him. Thinner, older, fragile. He was awake. When he saw me, his face changed. Relief, maybe, or guilt. I couldn't tell. I sat down in the chair beside his bed. He reached out and squeezed my hand weakly. I'm glad you came, he whispered, his voice raspy and tired. Of course, I said softly. We sat there for about an hour. We didn't talk much. What was there to say after all these years? I asked how he was feeling. He said tired. I asked if he needed anything. He said no. After a while, my mother appeared in the doorway and gestured for me to come into the hallway. I followed her out. She led me down to a small waiting area that was empty. We need to talk about next steps, Diane said. She looked exhausted, more tired than I'd ever seen her. Older, worn down. She explained the full situation carefully. The insurance would only cover a portion of what was needed. Tom would require extensive in-home care eventually. Possibly a full-time care facility, depending on his recovery. The costs were going to be enormous. We've looked at our savings and retirement accounts, she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. It's not going to be enough to cover everything. I waited, saying nothing. She finally looked directly at me. We need your help. Financially. She paused. And we need you to consider coming home for a while. Moving back to help with his care. Moving back, I repeated slowly. She nodded. Brooke can't do it. She has the kids and her commitments. You're single. You don't have those responsibilities. And you work remotely sometimes, right? You could do that from here. I stared at her. After everything. After all these years of absence and neglect. She was asking me to uproot my entire life. And she clearly expected me to say yes. How much money do you need? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Diane hesitated, looking uncomfortable. At least $30,000 to start. Maybe significantly more depending on how long he needs intensive care and what the insurance won't cover. $30,000. My stomach turned over. Where's Brooke in all of this? I asked carefully. She and Kyle are stretched incredibly thin financially. The mortgage payment, the kids' private school tuition, dance lessons, all their activities. They're doing what they can, but they just don't have extra resources right now. I nodded slowly. What about the wedding fund? My mother looked genuinely confused. What? The $47,000 you spent on Brooke's wedding, I said calmly, my voice completely void of emotion. The money that was supposed to be mine. The money Grandma and Grandpa saved for my education. Did you happen to save any of that back? Diane's face immediately hardened. That was 15 years ago, Peyton. I'm aware of exactly how long ago it was. This is completely different. This is your father's health. This is serious. My education was serious, too. She stared at me like I'd said something incomprehensible. I cannot believe you're bringing that up right now. You asked for my help. I'm asking a relevant question. Her jaw tightened visibly. We did what we thought was right at the time. Brooke needed that wedding. It was important to her. And I needed college, I said quietly. That was important to me. You turned out fine, she said dismissively. You have a good job. You're successful. I almost laughed. I need time to think about this. Think about it? Peyton, this is your father we're talking about. I understand that. And I need time to think about what I can and can't do. I walked away before she could say anything else. I flew back across the country to my apartment Sunday evening. I sat with my mother's request for days. I took time off work. I called my therapist and scheduled emergency sessions. I wrote in my journal for hours. I talked it through with my closest friends. I thought about everything. I thought about being 19 years old and sitting on my bedroom floor sobbing because my entire future had been stolen. I thought about working 2 jobs and being so exhausted I'd sometimes pull over and sleep in my car between shifts because I was too tired to safely drive home. I thought about every graduation they'd missed, every achievement they'd ignored, every milestone they couldn't be bothered to attend because something related to Brooke was always more important. I thought about every time they'd chosen her over me, every time they'd made me feel invisible, every time they'd made it crystal clear that I simply didn't matter as much. And I finally realized something with perfect clarity.
I didn't owe them this.
I didn't owe them anything at all. I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Peyton, I can't help you, I said quietly. I'm sorry, but I can't. The line went completely silent for several long seconds. Then Diane's voice came back, cold and sharp as ice. You're seriously saying no? To your own father? My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. But my voice stayed steady and calm. You can take out loans, I said softly. You'll figure something out. You're resourceful. That's what you told me. Then I hung up. The fallout was immediate, explosive, and brutal. My mother called back within the hour. She screamed at me for 20 minutes straight. Called me selfish, cruel, heartless, ungrateful. She listed every single birthday present, every Christmas gift, every meal, every piece of clothing they'd ever bought me. You're punishing us for something that happened years ago, she yelled. You're letting your father suffer because you're bitter?
I didn't respond.
I just let her scream until she finally ran out of words. Then I quietly hung up again. My father called next. His voice was weak and thin, but the disappointment came through perfectly clear. I thought you were better than this, Peyton, he said quietly. I really did. I didn't answer that call. I let it go to voicemail. Then Brooke sent me a text message. A long, furious paragraph. Are you seriously going to let Dad suffer because you're still bitter about a wedding from 15 years ago? Grow up, Peyton. This is pathetic. This is our father.
He could die.
And you're worried about ancient history. I can't believe how selfish you've become. I read every message, every voicemail, every text. I didn't block any of them. I didn't delete anything. And I didn't respond to any of it. I knew if I engaged even once, they'd find a way in. They'd find a crack in my armor. So I stayed completely silent. The guilt was enormous. It sat on my chest like a physical weight, crushing me. But underneath that guilt, there was something even stronger. Resolve. Pure, unshakable resolve. Within just a few days, extended family members started reaching out. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Some I barely even remembered. They'd all heard some version of the story. And in every single version, I was the villain. Peyton refused to help her dying father. That's what they'd been told. No context, no history, no explanation. Just that one damning sentence. One cousin I'd never been close with called me heartless. An aunt I'd met maybe twice left a voicemail about family duty and how disappointed she was in me. An uncle sent an email about what family means. I ignored most of them. I had no energy to explain myself over and over. But when my Uncle Perry called, my dad's younger brother, someone I'd actually liked growing up, I answered. He was different from the others.
Kind.
Careful. Gentle. I heard what's going on, he said quietly. I wanted to hear your side before I made any judgments. So I told him. Everything. The college fund. The wedding. The loans. The 2 jobs. The missed graduations. The years of being invisible. Perry was quiet for a very long time after I finished. I didn't know any of that, he finally said, his voice heavy. Peyton, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Nobody ever asked, I said simply. That's not an excuse, he said firmly. What they did to you is wrong. Deeply wrong. Those words broke something open in me. I started crying and couldn't stop. Thank you, I whispered. It was the first real apology I'd received from anyone in my family. 2 weeks after my conversation with Uncle Perry, someone knocked on my apartment door on a Saturday morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and my heart stopped.
Brooke was standing there.
She'd flown across the entire country, unannounced, uninvited. I considered not opening the door, but I knew she'd just keep coming back. I opened it. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my apartment. She immediately started in on me. I was being vindictive. I was being cruel. I was letting our father potentially die just out of spite. I stayed calm. I let her get it all out. I didn't interrupt. When she finally paused to take a breath, I asked quietly, "How much are you contributing to Dad's care?" She stopped mid-sentence.
What?
How much money are you personally giving? How much time are you taking off to help? Brooke stammered. I already told everyone, we don't have it. We have bills and responsibilities and... You have a 4-bedroom house, I said calmly.
2 cars.
Private school tuition. Regular vacations. Premium everything. We have a life, Peyton. We have real responsibilities. I nodded slowly.
So do I.
I built my life completely alone. You had everything handed to you on a silver platter, including my entire future. And now you want me to hand you even more. Her face started to crumble. Tears appeared in her eyes. The same tears that had always worked perfectly on our parents. I didn't move. I didn't soften. She tried for another 10 minutes. Then she finally gave up, grabbed her purse, and left. She slammed my door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. It was the last time we ever spoke. Uncle Perry started talking to other family members, telling them the real story. He told them what had actually happened 15 years ago. The whole truth. The story started spreading through the family like wildfire. A few relatives reached out to me privately over the next few weeks. Some were horrified at what my parents had done. Some apologized for judging me without knowing the facts. One of my dad's oldest friends, a man who'd actually contributed money to Brooke's wedding as a generous gift, called me. When he learned where the rest of the money had actually come from, he was furious. The narrative slowly started to shift and change. My parents weren't the victims of a cruel, heartless daughter anymore. They were the parents who'd stolen their child's future and then had the audacity to expect her to save them when they needed help. The small community they'd lived in for over 30 years started whispering. At church services, at the grocery store, at the coffee shop, people looked at them differently now, with judgment, with disapproval. My mother felt it everywhere she went. She called me one final time. She was screaming before I even said hello. "Everyone thinks we're terrible parents because of you. You've ruined our reputation. You've turned the whole family against us." I listened quietly until she ran out of steam. Then I said calmly, "You did that to yourselves." And I hung up for the last time. My father was eventually moved to a state-funded care facility. It wasn't luxurious or fancy, but it was clean, safe, staffed with competent nurses, adequate. My mother was exhausted, bitter, isolated, angry at the world. Brooke and Kyle's marriage started showing serious cracks under the financial pressure. Kyle grew resentful that Brooke's family couldn't help them when they were struggling. Brooke grew resentful of me for abandoning everyone. They fought constantly, according to Uncle Perry. Within a year, they separated. Within 18 months, they were divorced. Brooke moved back in with my mother, broke and bitter. Two resentful women living together in one small house. The perfect life Brooke had built, the one funded by my stolen future, crumbled completely. My mother stopped calling me. There was simply nothing left to say. I heard all of this through Uncle Perry. He kept me gently updated without ever pushing me to reconcile or reach out. When he told me about Brooke's divorce, I felt no satisfaction, no vindication, no joy at her pain, just a quiet, distant sadness. They'd chosen this path themselves, every single step of the way. 2 years after my father's stroke, I received an email from my mother. It was short, carefully worded, probably written and rewritten multiple times. She said maybe it was time to move past this for the sake of family. She said they missed me, that life had been very hard, that they hoped I'd consider coming around eventually for holidays. There was no apology anywhere in the email, no acknowledgement of what they'd done to me, no accountability, no recognition of the pain they'd caused, just a vague expectation that enough time had passed, so now I should fold, forgive, come back, pretend nothing had happened. I read the email twice. Then I wrote back one single sentence. "I have moved past it. I hope you find peace." I didn't block their email addresses. I didn't send a long letter explaining everything they'd done wrong. I didn't rage or yell or demand an apology. I just closed the door. Quietly, calmly, permanently. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their love. I didn't need their validation. I had my own life, my own people, my own peace, and that was more than enough. I'm 37 years old now. I'm a vice president at my firm. I have a partner who genuinely loves and adores me. I have friends who show up consistently. I have a life I built from absolutely nothing, with no help, no safety net, no support. I think about my parents sometimes, but not with anger anymore. Not with bitterness or resentment, just with clarity. Perfect, calm clarity. They made a choice 15 years ago. They chose convenience and favoritism and appearances over my future. They chose Brooke's wants over my needs. And when the natural consequences of that choice finally came due, I simply let them face it. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't hurt them. I didn't seek revenge. I simply refused to save them from themselves. The truth is, I won the moment I finally stopped waiting for them to see my worth. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. And in that distance, I found out exactly who I was. The girl they said didn't matter built a life that proved them completely wrong. I don't talk to my parents anymore. I don't talk to Brooke. I probably never will again. And I'm genuinely okay with that. Because I learned something crucial. The family you're born into isn't always the family you need. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who will never truly value you. And I finally learned to value myself. That's the real victory. That's what actually matters. They can't take that away from me. Nobody can.